Well, this is the point of Nigeria's football history where we cannot afford to disappear into obscurity. Yes, we do not have competitive international matches to play, probably throughout the duration of the year at senior international level, but a serious national association would have put into plans, as contingency plans, to prevent this from happening. There will always be FIFA free windows every year. How do you plan, to ensure that the Super Eagles are engaged during the FIFA free windows? And this is where we talked about the ranking of the Super Eagles on the FIFA Coca-Cola World Ranking monthly. Countries look at some of the best countries in the world and say, okay, this is the country we'd like to test our mettle against. And if you don't feature particularly very highly, the kind of invites you might be getting might be against the likes of Tonga or Samoa. But if you feature particularly highly, you expect the likes of Italy or even big Brazil to come calling. And that was what helped us in 2014. The fact that we're African champions. Now we are not African champions by default because we will be. That match will pass over to someone in February. It now leaves us with a little less luster. We are not so much of a big name or as a big draw as we used to be. So now this is where the NFA have to be particularly hardworking. They have to start sending out feelers, start signing the contracts for friendly matches throughout the FIFA free window. And I'm sure there's plenty we can do. Also, we have to start projecting ahead. A lot of the players in the team that we have now will definitely not be there in 2017. In the next Nations Cup. We now have to start looking at the medium term and the long term. Where are the players who are going to, to take over from these ones? Where are they going to come from? A lot of them are in the academies in Arsenal. We heard that there are 2 that they are thinking of blooding as well. There are some who are also thinking of pledging their allegiance to Nigeria, a Swiss under 20 players. So these are the players we now have to start looking at. Those who will take over from those who are there now and towards 2017 Nations Cup.
And of course, Yemi, a map out what plan we want to adopt. The plan that Keshi used and that worked for him of raising a team from the league and then bringing a few foreign-based players to come in. Is that what we're going to adopt, or what are we going to do? We have a lot of young Nigerians outside. This Sammy Amelbis of this world who are playing well for Newcastle. What do we do with those guys? Do we begin to introduce them into the team gradually? What plans are we going to put on the ground? That's on one side. Administratively, National Technical Director is there. The Super Eagles job is there. How do we strengthen and put structures in place going forward for our national team? These are issues that we also need to resolve as quickly as we can. As the year is starting, we should hit the ground running.
Yeah, it's always about the approach, and that's why I feel sad. I mean, we saw some of these things that happened in 2014. We saw it coming, and we talked about how close the qualifiers were, how we could get caught with the sucker punch if we didn't prepare, and it happened. We allowed some things to get us distracted, and now, like Tunde said, look, you need to know what you're doing. If something has worked for you, you don't do it to a stage and say, okay, fine, we don't have funds. I mean, that statement, we know what it has cost us now. So whatever you're going to do, are you going to just have a camp overseas where those youngsters who are switching allegiance to Nigeria, you're going to be training them, or you're going to continue with the home-based project? All of those things, you're going to look at it wholesale and determine that, look,
how do we want to proceed?
When we start this, we're not going to get to the middle and
then stop.
Aside not qualifying from the Nations Cup, Tunde also made us realize that we are even at a point where not qualifying for the Nations Cup should remind us that we actually still need to build a team. Because you look at
that, because next year, whether we like it or not, qualifiers for 2018 World Cup will begin. And then the home-based players will need to be at CHAN in 2016 in Rwanda. So these are projects
you don't really have to design.
National Association should factor in.
You don't have
building a team for the future.
You don't have the time to groan. You don't have the time to complain about not being.
I
remember how England reacted to not qualifying for Euro 2008. The year they didn't qualify, 3 months before that tournament, they played top grade friendlies, and they continued in that suit. They decided who was going to be their manager. They didn't leave any gaps.
Sorry to cut short. In 2004, Germany did not qualify from their group at the European Championships. They went back, they rebuilt their football structure from the ground up.
And the result is what we see today. World champions.
World champions. Just 3 years ago, we saw a lot of the players who won the European Under-21 Championship.
We have a lot of examples like this. 1994, the French didn't qualify for the World Cup. 4 years down the line, they were world champions. So failure happens.
But how you respond to the failure
That's
is
the issue.
for me,
That's the issue.
it's a blessing in disguise. If you ask me, it's a blessing in disguise that we did not qualify for the Nations Cup. The problem with Nigerian football is that we are too competition based. We are too focused on qualifying than actually developing football.
The real game.
And that is why, you know, a lot of people talk about how South Africa doesn't have talent. They don't, but the amount of hard work they are putting in
is yielding results now.
In investing in coaching, in licensing soccer schools, in
grassroots development, feeder teams for their leagues, and everything.
It is bound to yield some kind of
at some point in time.
And imagine if Nigeria adopted that kind of model.
With the quality of talent that we have. Okay, let's pause on that a little bit. I mean, these are the issues that we'll keep talking about in the days ahead until we begin to see structures in place. Even when we see structures in place, we'll keep talking about it so that we keep working those structures. Let's talk about the dream team, the Olympic team, as somebody will want us to call them, under 23 team. Samson Siasia and his boys. Today, we got a press release from the media officer of the team, Timi Ebikagboro, that Samson Siasia has called up just 4 foreign-based players and 35 home-based players. And Siasia says, look, I'm not going to build this team around foreign-based players because I may not have them available. I want to learn from the mistakes of Austin Eguavoen, who had a strong team. Remember, today we were always going to Benin to watch that team tear people apart.
Beat everybody.
But when the main tournament came around, they were nowhere to be found. They were not released by their clubs.
Yeah, I think that's the wisest thing to do. And any foreign-based player that you invite and comes probably is not getting
play time in his
club, and that explains. And it might also have a problem when some of these home-based stars begin to, you know, make the sojourn. I think it's a continual process, and that's why Samson Siasia has told us that, look, this thing is going to continue for a lot of time, and we just keep hoping that when the games come, somehow we get to win till we're able to get that stability where he can now sit down and say, okay, this is my team. And I mean, to me, it's a no-brainer. That is the way to go. Get your guys here. If you don't get your guys here, I mean, we talked about that Eguavoen team, and I still feel sad that team, because
they didn't really
it could have solved some of the problems if we are able to get those guys, see some of those other guys compete, and maybe probably bring some of them into the Eagles. I wish him all the best, because he has to get it right. If it doesn't, I mean, it puts the pressure.
Samson Siasia is fired up to succeed. You know the reason why? The way he lost the Eagles job. Now he has an opportunity again to come back into the minds of Nigerians. That's why he's working so hard at building a team that Nigerians will be proud. But we wish him the best of luck, and we hope that he's able to get it right. But let's step down also and talk about the Flying Eagles. Today, Coach Manu Garba, you know, he was on the show last week, and he talked about areas in his team that needs fortification before the African Youth Championship under 20 tournament. He has called up 9 foreign-based players and a few home-based players, but my worry is about availability of some of these foreign-based players. Granada of Spain's Isaac Success is already a La Liga player.
Yeah.
And a key member of Granada.
Featuring the first team.
So unless Manu Garba is already getting his release from now, assurances from now for the tournament next year, I doubt if you're going to have a Success available.
Well, it's going to be very difficult, because Isaac Success has already played in the La Liga, scored there, and they think of him extremely highly as well. Getting Isaac Success might be difficult. Taiwo Awoniyi, Musa Mohammed, Chidebere, those ones might be easier to get because they play for the youth teams of their clubs as well. But Isaac Success is going to be a particular difficulty, and that is why if you look at his team, there's a huge emphasis on forwards. There were almost more than a third of the team were actually forwards. I think he's looking at that eventuality that there might be a possibility that Isaac Success might not be available. And, you know, it's also a good thing in a life, because remember, going into the World Youth Championship, a lot of emphasis was placed on Isaac Success. To the detriment of probably the likes of Kelechi Iheanacho and Taiwo Awoniyi. But when he was not available, he threw up new names. So if Isaac Success is not available as well, it will surely give
Others
the
the chance.
opportunity to others to stake their claim for, as being the team's top striker. So calling up 9 and 30 players is an excellent idea. He gives me a decent pool to work with. So if some are not available, he has capable replacements.
And provisions for injuries, because it's part of the game as well.
All right, the boys are already in Kaduna, and we're told that they will be resuming camp this weekend for the final phase of preparation for the Africa Under-20 Championship. And you remember, of course, the draws were made on Monday. Nigeria is in a very tricky group at the Under-20 level, where we the host Senegal and Cote d'Ivoire. Remember, it's not going to be easy. And I think Congo and those boys should just go out there and grab Congo for us for what they did to us en route the 2015 Africa Cup of
They didn't do
Nations.
anything to us. We did it to ourselves.
Okay, whatever. Okay, let's leave football for a while. We'll come back to football later on.